A lot of folks asking me, when should they consider buying their own printer to print out their POP materials, or when should they, just buy off-the-shelf stuff, or when should they special order something?
It depends upon what their output is. If they're looking for bench cards, I think that's an easy one to do with a color laser printer, and you can buy certain substrates that are, water and element resistant. So I think that's pretty straightforward. The biggest challenge, of course, is the content of it, making sure you have the right images and the right care and culture information and descriptions. But I think that's a good way to go, so a garden center can brand their business better.
Okay. And now, is there some items that they should consider when going and getting some off-the-shelf type materials as opposed to printing it themselves? I mean, quantity and things like that. When does it become better for them to just print it themselves as opposed to ordering it online, perhaps?
It really depends upon, it's always a trade-off of the cost versus, the output of what you're looking for. So if you're looking for something that's, very specific to your business and you have more control over it, then, obviously you're going to want to manage that more directly. As far as, the output for general signs, we've been doing this for a little while, so we have sort of fixed down to some substrates that work really well for garden centers. So for the outdoor banner type, vertical type banners, we actually print and mount them onto Centra board, which is a little bit, it's not a little bit, it's a lot more durable. It's basically an extruded PVC.
Okay.
So it's rigid but flexible.
Okay.
And so we basically print with UV inks, use a UV laminate on it, and punch and grommet it. And that's been very popular with our retailers as far as that's concerned. The other option, a little lower cost, would be to output onto a vinyl adhesive backing and mount that onto a Corex board. That's what you usually find, and the ripped sign board, the corrugated plastic. Those are going to be less expensive. They're less durable, but if you're just looking to get by for a season, that can work pretty well. If you're doing a lot of signs, or you're a fairly large garden center, then you might want to look into getting a wide format printer. And I think you can, back in when we originally got our equipment, those were running, $20,000 to $25,000. The one we got probably a couple years ago was about $15,000, but we were looking for a unit that would actually bond the ink into the substrate. So rather than a typical dot printer or an inkjet printer, which sprays ink onto a substrate, it actually has a process where it fuses it into it. Because, garden centers need something that's a little bit more weather resistant.
Right.
People can print their own. The other problem that they run into is laminating, because that's another piece of equipment entirely.
I've heard a lot of people say that they just go for the weather-resistant materials, and it saves the time and effort and money for having one person laminate everything. Yeah,
you can use a polypropylene. We use a company called Rose Displays. They have a system called the Gotcha system.
Okay.
It basically snaps on, and that'll give the poly sign enough rigidity at the top and enough weight at the bottom to work well, and it's a good flexible system. Okay.
Well, let's talk about hiring someone to do design for someone. Not everyone in a garden center knows how to has that eye, and some people might want something a little bit more custom. As opposed to off-the-shelf stuff. What are the options there, and what should people consider when they look for a designer?
Well, I mean, that's a large question.
Yeah.
Because, ideally the designer should come to have an understanding of what the garden center is all about. Their position in the marketplace, what type of look and feel. Because, ideally you want something that's going to work seamlessly within the physical facility. So for a lot of the larger jobs that we do, I'll actually, go out on site and shoot the different sight lines so we can determine what size needs to go where and what the garden center is all about, what type of appearance they're looking to develop and maintain, because, in essence, the signage, in addition to helping people find what they're looking for, is an expression of the style and the brand of the garden center. So, and the other thing that I think people like about, what we do is we can create a consistency throughout the various media that they do, because ideally your signage should have some elements of everything down to like your website.
Yeah.
So there's a consistent brand presentation as far as that's concerned. But the good news is once you've found that those style points, it makes it easier down the road to get more done. So when you think about going into like a crate and barrel, they've been using the same font and the same treatment for 30 years, and it's become signature, for them. And those are the types of things that a garden center should look for through a designer, would be the style of font, style of imagery, and build a template or a style sheet for them.
Now, is there anything else that I might not have asked you that I should include in the article?
Again, I think a lot of times what people overlook are, making sure the scale is proper to, the distance that people are going to see it, and looking at the signage in sort of in a series of elevation, if you will, so that if somebody is within 15 to 20 feet, their eye level can go down to maybe 3 or 4 feet off the ground. If they're looking, 10 to 15 feet beyond that, then the elevation of the sign needs to be higher. And obviously, if they're looking for 50 feet or further, it needs to be at a different eye level, because what you want is for the customer to move through your facility. And so the elevation of the signs and the amount of information, further away it is, people should just take a billboard approach, image, identity, and quick direction, so somebody can see it from a distance.
Okay.
Only when they're on top of the product do they really need more information.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that before.
That's great. Well, thanks a lot for thinking of us, Ellen.
Sure, thank you.